What's this experience the last week or so been like for you that you've sort of been the talk of everything? You've been, in the spotlight more so than usual.
If you ever get depressed about where you are in your life, be with me the last week, where phones ringing off the hook, the texts are coming in by the minute from multiple areas, people I haven't seen in an awful long time, and people that are still part of my life. It's just been really surreal, and I use that word a lot because I look back at it, my career is in such a, like, in 1973, I came here to training camp. I was the shortest guy, just trying to get on. And next thing you know, here I am 50 years later, still as a member of the Philadelphia Flyers and still in the hockey business. So if I can't go and pinch myself every day, I got a problem. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, did you ever think, looking back 43 years later, before, that you'd be having a night where the team's honoring you?
I would have told you there's absolutely no chance. In fact, I was surprised I didn't get fired the first game playing with working with Gene Hart when I spilled coffee all his notes. That was my first start. That was off to a really good start. But thinking about all of a sudden you're a rookie broadcaster. I come in here in 1980 to 30 radio games with Gene. What a great way to start, with Gene Hart. I mean, Gene Hart was a guy that you could turn the game on and know what the score was. If it was, we were losing with 5 minutes to go, you knew what was happening. I mean, he just didn't have it. But boy, I tell you what, it was good. You knew they were winning. And what a great way to start. And then to understand what it took to be a broadcaster for the Philadelphia Flyers.
Was it hard for you to make the decision to step away? One thing that's very obvious is that in all of your broadcasts is how much you enjoy it. So I'm curious as to how difficult it is for you to not have that as part of your life anymore.
I'll tell you something that wasn't, to be very honest, it wasn't, it was my decision, obviously, but I had a reason for this to happen, which will indicate whether I'm going to miss it or not. In answer to your question, Charlie, I have a real problem with my right eye, and I have for a long time that it's not going to get any better. So I can't see the game the way I would like to see it. Am I doing it? Yeah, I'm doing it, but not the way that I like doing it. And understanding where it is, what it is, I've got to do all different combinations of things now to do it. So when I found out that the eye wasn't going to get any better 3 weeks ago, I then came out and told everybody that it's time. So in saying that, that put me over the edge. Will I miss it? Yeah, I'm going to miss it. Somebody said, "Are you going to miss going on the road?" Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's about, is the camaraderie with all the all the people you work with and just the whole thought process. You've been on the road and it's tough lately with all the losing and the up and down, the emotional roller coaster of what's going on right now. But I'll tell you what, it's still the same as far as everybody wants to be a Flyer, and everybody, and this is on the way up. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I asked Tim Saunders the other day about what highlight games he remembers. He said, it's not really about the games, it's about the relationships and the friendships that I formed, and just being grateful that I'm able to sit here night after night and watch this unbelievable sport take place. You kind of go along with that?
I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, it's not a right, it's a privilege. In answer to your question before, if you had told me that I was going to be a broadcaster for the Philadelphia Flyers for 40 and some years, you go, no chance. I mean, I started off, I backed in, and Pete Silverman was the gentleman that first hired me, who was a radio television producer at the time in 1980. And then he went on to be vice president of Madison Square Garden Broadcasting. Mike Finnicchiaro took over for him. And so I was all over the place. I was doing radio, then we went into a meeting with Jay Snyder in 1984. He said, "I want you to be the studio host." And I got off to a real rough start with that. That wasn't a good thing. I kind of like, but I was just like, I was going everywhere. Bobby Taylor got sick And I ended up doing, I don't know how many games. He was really sick. And I went on the road with Gene. I went Calgary, Edmonton, Hartford, St. Louis. I can't remember all that. So that's after I did well with that, I guess that's where they thought I could do the in-between period stuff. But the only difference with the in-between period stuff is that when you have an opportunity to stand beside a guy like Gene Hart and answer his questions live on television is one thing. But then all of a sudden you get into an area like this with a camera in front of you without a teleprompter and now have to talk. Very, very nerve-wracking. And that's how it all started. But it's surreal, as I said. I mean, I can't even put my finger on how I feel. I just feel so gratified at the whole thing, but humbled at the same time.
For those of us of a certain age, we remember Coatesy's Corner.
What's that mean, certain age?
Well, I mean for the younger group.
I'm just joking at him. Go
I
ahead.
remember it.
Look at that. All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was that kind of the most fun you had doing that?
I'll tell you how that came about. We were in Peterborough, 1999, training camp. It's when Roger Nielsen was the coach. Ron Ryan at the time was the president of the hockey club, and he says, listen, we want you to do a in-between periods thing. I said, yeah. Well, what do you want me to do? Just, go on there. And, and I said, well, what do you want me, who am I going to do it with? Oh, no, you're doing it by yourself. Well, so Brian Cooper was our producer at the time. Jen Roman was the associate producer. And we had an opportunity to start doing this. And it evolved into something that was educational, talked about history of the league. It was funny. And what was good about the funniness is it really allowed the fan to see a player in a different light. And we had a lot of fun with it, and the players had a lot of fun with it. They said that when they did the event for tonight, they watched 4 hours of Coatesy Corners. We had a great time doing it, and the people loved it. But as anything else, it becomes a little old, and it was time to move on.
Did you have a favorite guest or part of that segment that comes to mind?
Oh, I could go on and on. I mean, no, I had I had Gordie Howe on there. I could go on and on and on about the number of people. It'd be unfair because there were so many people that I had involved with that. It's very rare that I went by myself. I would have something planned or do something with somebody. And they're going to show a lot of them here tonight, I guess. Rob Ray being one. I can tell you the one I did with Rob Ray, where I was between the benches with him when he was between the benches in Buffalo. And I said to him, what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you about Coatesy Corner, and then I'm going to tell you that that I understand that you were a tough guy in the National Hockey League, but now you're standing there with a suit. How tough can you be? And I told him before we did this, just pick me up and bang me against the glass. That's all I need you to do. He said, okay. So I opened it. I did the whole thing. He picks me up. The only problem is he did it twice. The second time, he knocked me nearly cold. I was dizzy coming off. I said, whoa. So I'll be busting his chops again here tonight.
I know this is hard to put in a couple words or a sentence or two, but if I asked you, what do the Flyers mean to you? How could you try to express that?
I know it's a tough time to talk about the Flyers because of what's happened in the last few years, but they've had some bad times before, 89 through 93. They ended up going to the Stanley Cup final again in the 96, was it 96, 97? So you could turn it around quick enough. But it doesn't take away, as much as it's hard now, it doesn't take away from the amount of years that this hockey club was one of the premier franchises of the National Hockey League. When you take a look at the number, there's only one team that's been to more Stanley Cup finals since 1967 than the Philadelphia Flyers. That's the Montreal Canadiens. There's only one team that's got a better winning percentage than the Philadelphia Flyers, and that's the Montreal Canadiens since the original expansion. So it tells you that the culture and the players that have played here have been, there's something special about a Flyer. And whether it be their personality, their attitude for sure. I mean, people say, well, who's your favorite player? I don't have a favorite player. I have players that I didn't think were Flyers that weren't here very long. But the whole, it's like a brethren about being a Philadelphia Flyer and understanding what it takes to win. And it started obviously with the 1974-75 Stanley Cup team, and it started with Bob Clark and those guys to show what it took, because they weren't the best team that won the Stanley Cup that year. They were the best team, if you know what I mean. The best team was the Boston Bruins, but the team that was together the most, worked the hardest, got the most of all their players was the team to win. And I think that carried through to the middle 80s with the 2 years we went to the Stanley Cup Finals there. Then we had a whole new crew in the 90s, went to the Stanley Cup Finals. Another new crew in 2010, so we went to a Stanley Cup Finals. So it's something special. And and it's interesting, we always say, well, people say, well, why do you have to hire so many Flyers people? Well, because it is special. And it's why there's 5 coaches in the National Hockey League now. They're former Flyers. There's a reason. There's more broadcasters right now that are former Flyers. It tells you about the organization and the people, and it's the people that work here and the people that come to work every day with a Flyers logo on, are proud of it. As I said, it's been tough, but you're going to have times like that. You're going to win, you're going to lose, you're going to have different reasons for it to happen, but we're still the Philadelphia Flyers, and that's the bottom line for me. And, you know, it's when I did my radio with Gene when we first started, paid and selected by the Philadelphia Flyers. And I've always been proud of that. I'll always remember that. And that's the way I am. If that answers your question, Bill.
What does Tim Saunders mean to you?
Well, you know what? One thing about your play-by-play partner, he better be your best friend. When you're sitting 2.5 hours beside him, you're on the plane with him, you're on the bus with him, you're with him all the time. You're with him more than you are in your own family. And one of the advantages, he was worried, you know, when I had gone through a couple of broadcasters there in 2 years in a row, he said, oh man, what have I got myself into here? But we hit it off right off the bat when he got here in '98. And then when I was sent back to radio, and I forget what year it was just like riding a bike. We went right back. So he's like a family member, my brother. And I'll talk about that later on. But he's the real deal. He's a great play-by-play guy. He's kind of like Gene, you know. He can make a game better, and that's what it's about. That's what makes play-by-play so good, and where the good ones really are hard to find.